I'd cinched that shiny new Colt to my hip before stepping off the train. Lord, how that steel gleamed like a greenhorn's first day. The thing felt heavy as a fence post hanging there. But my carefully chosen rig didn't last a week in this country. Had to tear off that fancy flap holster quick enough and get myself a proper Mexican loop scabbard if I wanted to see another sunrise. These were the hard-learned words of Edgar Bronson, fresh off the rails in Cheyenne around 1876, where the speed of your draw often determined whether you'd be buying drinks or pushing up daisies. For years, cowboys and gunfighters had favored the snug-fitting California pattern holsters, closed-top affairs that kept a man's iron secure. But when reliable metal cartridges hit the frontier, everything changed. A revolutionary design emerged from south of the border, the Mexican loop holster. This open-topped innovation would transform how every shootist from Texas to Montana carried their persuader, ushering in a new era of Western gun leather that prioritized quick access over secure storage. Edgar and other marksmen using metallic cartridges now had the convenience of carrying extra rounds directly on their person. In the earlier days of muzzle-loading firearms, shooters had to rely on separate containers like powder flasks to hold loose gunpowder, percussion caps, and lead balls. The rise of large-caliber ammunition, .41 and above, and revolvers led many to carry spare cartridges in specially designed leather loops on their waist belts, likely marking the beginnings of the classic gun belt. The narrow loops on the back of the older, slimmer California pattern holsters had been made for the percussion era. So as ammunition evolved, gun-carrying frontiersmen realized they needed new holsters that could accommodate the broader cartridge-filled belts. Just enlarging the loop on the back of a California-style holster didn't do the trick. The narrow loop allowed the holster to shift around too much, and it made the pistol hang loosely, bouncing uncomfortably, especially during activities like horseback riding. A practical and clever solution emerged in the mid-1870s. The Mexican loop holster. Thought to have originated in northern Mexico or the American Southwest, this new design kept the sleek-shaped seam and the flared opening around the trigger guard from the earlier California pattern. However, it introduced a key innovation, a single piece of leather that formed the main body, backing, and the wide retaining loop securing the holster to the belt. The Mexican loop holster kept the traditional vertically sewn pouch seen in the older California pattern, but made some smart modifications. Instead of trimming off the upper rear of the holster, the leather was cut in a way that created an extended backing, or skirt. This skirt was then folded down behind the holster body, forming both a belt loop and a buffer between the holster and the wearer's side. The backing was cut with 2 or more slits, depending on the size and style, through which the holster pouch was threaded. These formed secure leather loops that held the holster tightly to the backing. This setup provided a wide, stable loop for sliding onto a cartridge belt, keeping the holster firmly in place, while the skirt loops prevented it from riding up when the gun was drawn. Although most loop holsters had skirt loops cut directly from the backing, others, especially those made in Texas and Montana, used loops that were individually stitched or riveted in place. These loops came in various shapes, including straight, curved, or even scallop designs. No matter the style or decorative touch, the loops played a key role in the holster's overall functionality. In the beginning, loop holsters were typically longer to accommodate the popular cartridge revolvers of the 1870s, such as those made by Colt, Remington, and Smith & Wesson, with barrel lengths ranging from 7.5 to 8 inches. Early designs often included a teardrop-shaped toe plug to help retain the holster's shape near the bottom. Later versions either left the toe open or stitched the main seam all the way through the toe. Initially, the skirt backing on these holsters extended about halfway down the pouch, but later models were made with skirts that reached 3/4 or even the full length of the holster. As the California-style holster evolved, the Mexican loop holster of the early 1880s also changed, from a custom-fitted scabbard made for a specific revolver to a more versatile design with a gently tapered pouch and a semi-shaped main seam. This newer style allowed one holster to fit various large-frame handguns, giving many of these rigs a similar overall look. Still, certain versions of the Mexican loop holster became associated with particular regions of the frontier. One of the most recognized is the Cheyenne loop holster, which was developed early on by saddle makers like F.A. Manea, E.L. Gallatin, and possibly J.S. Collins. The Cheyenne holster stands out thanks to its curved main seam, which includes a slight outward bulge between the skirt loops. This feature helped secure the holster body when drawing the revolver. No matter the era, most Cheyenne holsters included a sewn-in toe plug, sometimes referred to as the Cheyenne plug. Ranch hands on the northern plains appreciated this addition not just for maintaining the holster's shape, but also for keeping snow out of the gun barrel. The Cheyenne holster stayed in use from the 1870s and remained a favorite well into the 20th century. Down in Texas, a distinctive take on the Mexican loop holster emerged in the late 1890s, though it never gained widespread popularity across the West. Still, a handful of well-known holster makers crafted what came to be known as the Texas jockstrap holster. Among those credited with its creation were saddlers H.A. Holzer from Llano and S.D. Myers of Sweetwater. This particular design featured a softly tapered pouch-style scabbard held firmly in place by a large T-shaped leather loop or collar that secured it at both sides and the bottom. The unique jockstrap component was a separate leather piece fastened to the backing with rivets. In some versions, a full leather pocket was stitched to the skirt, cradling the lower half of the holster for added stability. Though never mainstream, the Texas jockstrap holster remained in limited use through the 1940s. By the time the Mexican loop holster came into use, the style of gun leather decoration had already moved away from the bold, deeply carved floral designs of earlier years. Instead, more modest border-stamped patterns had become popular. These subtle decorations typically traced the outer edge of the holster's scabbard and often extended to the skirt loops and the perimeter of the skirt itself. The border designs ranged from simple single or double lines to small repeating motifs that followed the shape of the holster and its components. Saddle makers sometimes combined multiple patterns to form a complete border, and on occasion they included stamped rosettes or geometric shapes near the top of the holster body. It was common to place the maker's stamp in this area or on one of the loops, and some craftsmen even worked the maker's mark into the center of a floral design, making it less noticeable. Although border stamping was the dominant form of decoration on loop holsters during the height of the Mexican loop's popularity, roughly 1880 to 1920, more detailed floral carving began to reappear in the 1880s. Reflecting the changing tastes of the time, these carved holsters usually featured their floral work framed within a stamped border, replacing the plain edge styles seen during the percussion era. Holsters made south of the Rio Grande were often decorated with embroidery rather than traditional stamping or carving. This fine needlework used fibers from native plants, along with silk or metallic threads, and featured motifs such as the Mexican eagle and snake, geometric and Aztec designs, as well as floral patterns. By the mid to late 1880s, basket stamping began to appear on holsters. Within a few years, advances in leatherworking tools made it possible to produce machine-stamped and rolled border designs at lower costs, along with embossed floral patterns, fish scale textures, basket stamping, and other detailed surface decorations. By the early 1900s, as cowboys and other six-shooter carriers started customizing their holsters, new styles of gun leather ornamentation gained popularity among saddlers across both the East and West. Besides stamped or carved designs, holsters were adorned with laced-on conchos and nickeled brass studs, known as harness spots, which sometimes framed the holster and other times covered it nearly completely. Some also featured main seams and borders sewn with contrasting rawhide laces. Before the 1920s, the loop holster had evolved into the most versatile gun scabbard ever made. available in a wide range of styles and decorative options. While some loop holsters were later made for modern semi-automatic pistols, especially the legendary Model 1911 and its variants, the Mexican loop holster is most closely linked to the Western revolver.